Welcome to Interro Bites. These are 15-minute videos taken from my long-form live streams. If you want to see the full video or more, subscribe to Dacquisto and check out the playlists on my main page. Thanks for being here. Enjoy.
You had to work pretty hard to lose that job.
Okay. What was the reason? I mean, I know that there was some type of contention, and I don't know if it was the child rearing, or do you know that?
I can tell you anything you want to know about that. I've got every legal document.
No. What did she personally tell you?
Tell me about child rearing?
Well, the reason for their divorce. How did she get to this point?
Oh, Danny was, give you a couple examples of Markel. They would drive from here to Miami as a family. Oh, this is before they had kids even, but even as a family, both. And Danny would work on his computer. He had one of those converters so he could plug your laptop in. Wendy was required to drive, and Wendy was required not. That's okay.
Sorry. Yes, sir. Say again. Okay. Do you have Couch's number? Yeah, I'm going to have him. I'm busy right now. I'm going to have him meet, and then I'm going to talk to him when they're done downstairs or wherever they do the buckle. Are you already on the second floor? Okay, just get Couch. He's waiting for you. Thanks.
And Markel's rule was, you may not speak from Tallahassee to Miami.
From Tallahassee to Miami.
And she said she would be like, Dang, I'm working. Just a total control freak, emotionally abusive, controlled the finances, just ran her shit.
Okay, so of course, Jeffrey probably didn't have evidence of this, but he was sharing what Wendy was sharing with him. And Lady Cymbeline, I think you're right that the Miami thing, I think you're right about that. I'm not 100%, but that it was that Wendy had just graduated, so she wouldn't have been able to get that second job that they wanted a job for both of them. So that sounds about right, but I can't remember 100%. If anyone has, yes, Stephen Epstein. Yes, that makes sense. I knew we heard it somewhere. Thank you, Judy.
And I don't know if he hit her or not, but I can tell you, if you just raise your voice to her like that, she flinches like she's got her ass kicked yesterday. So I've wondered about violence. I don't know. She says no, but people lie. Wendy lies a lot. So he was pretty mean to her. And as she went to get married, every friend she had was begging her, don't marry this guy. He's the biggest asshole we've ever met.
So Jeff is very free to talk about what names he uses about Dan, even right after he was murdered. I just found that a bit interesting, that not that he would suspect all that happened until later on, but just that he was willing to repeat basically something that may or may not have been true. So he still has the veil over his eyes at this point, and that's somewhat understandable. So Judy says it sounds like Wendy told a story to Jeff blaming it on Dan. Right. A few stories, because he has a few gems about Dan that may or may not have been true. And we have heard some of these things were not actually true. Surprised. Dan had mentioned that people were not. Was it Dan who mentioned people weren't impressed with her, Judy, or was it Stephen who mentioned that people weren't impressed with Wendy's credentials in Miami? And Helen says, I remember reading that he didn't stay at the job in Miami because the university didn't want his spouse as part of the package deal, and she didn't seem to be a good fit. That sounds about right. I recall that. And Downtown Wonder, hello. If Wendy had promised to marry Jeff, we would have seen a whole different side of Jeff. Yeah. Or even had married him, because quite frankly, she was free to marry. They had been divorced a year by now. What side of Jeff do you think we would have seen? Downtown Wonder, I'm curious. And of course, this is speculation. We're interested in this because a terrible crime was committed. So And then I mentioned Judy's comment. It was Epstein. Epstein said they weren't impressed, not Dan. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Oh, I must have missed something from Lady Cymbeline. Yes. Okay. So, and we can't blame Jeff for operating. This is what he knew. This is what he knew about Dan, mostly from Wendi. That's how it works.
And she got caught up in the Harvard law and elitism and all this kind of stuff. And she's in a bad place. Made a bad decision, got married to a guy.
Oh, one comment. I don't know where it went, but somebody, I'm sorry to interrupt right in the middle of his sentence, but Christopher Dacquisto made her sound very accomplished. She was accomplished academically. She had just graduated, though, when they got married, right? She was a young, whether it was an attorney or a professor, she was, very inexperienced at that point. So I think Christopher LaCasse did that as a technique in his interrogation. I thought it was I really appreciated that he was doing that. So she was accomplished in many ways academically at that point, but not yet professionally because she was still just earning her wings. She was glad to ditch him as soon as So Judy says Wendi would not have married Jeff, is what she's saying. Seems like.
I got divorced last year, so I understand.
Oh, you did?
I got married to the wrong woman too, so I get it. That's how we bonded, actually. We picked the wrong people before. So it was a bad marriage from day one. I mean, pretty much.
So he says that's how they bonded. Wendi and Jeffrey bonded because they were both recently divorced and they both picked the wrong people. But I believe what he's implying here is he thought this was the right people. This is the right person for him.
According to her, at least. By the second year, it was awful. And then having kids will fix it. People try that. So he's also an absent father. I mean, he came home 9 o'clock every night, she claims, and that would play with the kids for 10 minutes. That was it. She did everything, kind of like a house slave. And then when he went to go get divorced, he tried to get 100% custody of the kids.
How many people believe that Wendi was a house slave? Just show of hands. Curious. I'm not faulting him for saying this, but this is what he knew of what she said. But how believable really is that?
So if you read these legal documents that he's filed, I don't know if you read them, but they give you insight into it's pretty crazy.
I haven't had the time, but I will.
Yeah, it's a lot of lunacy shines through.
But I'm sure he had his side of it too.
I'm sure he did, and that's what I wonder about is with all the stuff I talked about with Wendi with me. I mean, he was controlling. Well, maybe he's trying to keep his wife in control. I don't know.
And Isom very appropriately says, I'm sure he had his side of it. There's always two sides or more to every situation like this, right? And Jeffrey's still kind of, he's still invested, let's just say, in believing Wendi about Dan, which is interesting. Dan's been murdered, but okay.
Right.
But he, you must have heard, don't want to speak ill of the dead. He wasn't well liked. It's bizarre to open up the paper and see all these comments about how great guy he was. I know one person in my social circle.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're hovering around.
I'm an honorary Jew, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know what they call me.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't know the truth about their marriage, but I do know that it was really, really hard on Wendi. And when it got to the legal stuff, he was vicious. He was really vicious. So.
Anything? Did she ever tell you anything concerning any incidents when Danny and Charlie were together, or Danny and any other family? I mean, was it kind of like, hey, Danny, you sleep over here in the doghouse or something?
No. It was more like the family hate. This is why she didn't introduce me to her parents. She said last time it was so awkward because it went so badly because they all hated Danny. Charlie hated Danny. Her parents hated Danny.
Do you know why?
He is in person. He is so arrogant. He is so unlikable. He would just talk down to people. He was one of these Harvard guys.
Okay.
And it was just like when I met him in that awkward meeting. I was early. I was late. He was early, and we met for the first time. He insulted me 3-4 times in 10 sentences, just in subtle, like haughty, snobby kind of ways. Like, "Oh, are you a lawyer?" And just little comments here and there. So he was passive aggressive about it. He wasn't in your face. He wasn't yelling, but he insulted. He would just tell you, he said, "You're stupid."
Okay.
I mean, that's just how he talked. He thought he should have
He's basically subtly insulting you the entire conversation.
Yeah, he did. I mean, as far as Wendi and him, he did all kinds of little things to intimidate her. I don't know if he knew he was doing it, but
I don't know if he knew he was doing it, is what he says. And we all know people like this. I actually know people who other people think are really intimidating in the way that Jeffrey is describing, but they're not intimidating to me. So I think a lot of times it's just a matter of, he's the ex-husband, I'm the new boyfriend. He's going to be sensitive. Jeff is a very sensitive guy, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way. So, but Jeff's friends have even said, hey, he didn't walk away from being an argument, or he liked to spar a little bit intellectually. So I guess that's what he's probably referring to. And I do really appreciate that he did finally say, let's not speak ill of the dead.
She was scared of him. I would go with her to functions that he was at to kind of reassure her and run interference, because she would get heart palpitations and stuff around him. And it seemed completely out of the scope of normal. I got an ex-wife. I could get in front of her. Not a big deal.
Right.
For her, it was like, will you please come with me to soccer practice or whatever it was? Oh, swim lessons 3 weeks ago. Will you come with me to swim lessons because Danny's going to be there? And she would just freak out.
Did you go?
I did go.
Was he there?
Yeah, he was there.
Was everything okay between you and him?
Well, yeah, everything was fine. We kind of moved through a phase where at first we were real friendly, shaking hands, and then the guy like, hey, how you doing? I'm not going to shake your hand.
Okay, so I want to ask you, if you were in the interview room here, it really isn't an interrogation, but hey, why, if this is true, what Jeff is saying, I'm not saying that Jeff's making it up, but maybe Wendi is saying something that isn't true. Do you think Wendi really was intimidated about going to see the kids play soccer and running into Dan? And why would she be that way? She was pretty assertive in initiating the divorce. I'm not saying that people don't have feelings, but why do you think that was an act, or was she really nervous about seeing Dan? And if she was nervous about seeing Dan, why would that be? Don't you think that would be interesting to know?
We're on different sides of this thing, that kind of thing. But it was always reasonably friendly.
Did she introduce you to him
She did.
as your boyfriend, your current boyfriend?
No.
Right.
I don't remember what she said. This is Jeff, I think.
Okay.
That was a point of contention between us. She didn't call me her boyfriend until very recently. So
Okay.
I think because she might have had other ones. I think that might have been the issue.
Okay.
Maybe Dan Zach was also her boyfriend. I don't know.
Okay.
Oh my God, how humiliating. That poor guy. Like, he's admitting it was only like a month ago. Finally, they were dating for the better part of the year, but they were serious for 3 months. And now she's actually referring to him as her boyfriend. Oh my God. Hi, Lizzie.
Yes.
Is there anything else I just don't think
He did say he was willing to give buckle if you need it or want it. Is that something you want to do?
I can call him back. We have his phone number.
it's taking a second.
And the guy drives in from Georgia, Tennessee, whatever, and comes straight here from what I understand, what you told me.
Yeah, I didn't do it.
Mm-hmm. Hey, everyone.
I guess the thing that keeps popping up in my head is, don't write this down, but just so you know, if you're investigating, I've been shocked how easily Lindy lies to my face. I've been dating 25 years. I'm not an experienced man out there, but her and Charlie both have this sociopathic kind of thing where it doesn't seem to bug them at all. So if you had her in front of you for 9 hours.
Are her parents,
Now, Detective Isom kind of rolls over this one, but he just said something huge. I have been shocked at how Wendi can just lie to your face. He's also saying that Charlie and the entire family are very, it's very easy for them to lie. So it's still sinking in for him. And God, again, it's only a few days after Dan's murder.